Right, this is your England versus France post-mortem. A much more considered thought, and I've got a lot to say. Hit subscribe on the channel. I'm Tim, this is Egg Chasers. Thank you very much. There's loads more Six Nations content coming in, rugby content in general, so if you appreciate that, then hit subscribe. I just want to show you this though, however, before I get started. Look at that. There's a pocket of French fans down by the French broadcaster, still in full voice. Can you hear that? They are fantastic, the crowd, the French travelling fans. So good, so good. I just wanted you to see that. Anyway, let me get myself settled. Oh, there we go. So I'm in Twickenham. I was going to say, normally when I do this, I'm on my own. There's hardly anyone here, just the guys out mowing the pitch. Sorry, I'm going to have to sort this out. There we go. But yeah, there's a load of French fans still here. So let's talk about England. Just to say, on the previous video I did immediately after full time, full of praise for France, and I just want to emphasise that is the big story here. France are incredible. They were amazing. So look at the video for me gushing over them. But let's talk about England then. Firstly, we need to talk about England's place in the Six Nations. Should we have promotion relegation and maybe Georgia should have a chance and England should go down? No, joking, obviously. But wouldn't you love to have an Eddie Jones cam right now and see what Eddie is thinking? Just maybe having a very satisfying sip of whiskey, perhaps, although it's like morning in Australia there, isn't it? He'll have been loving that. I just hope we make it interesting in Dublin. If it is a Grand Slam match for Ireland, I hope we at least make it interesting and put up some level of competition, because it could be a bit of a procession otherwise. So here's some facts for you. That is the third heaviest defeat in English rugby history. It's the heaviest defeat for an England team at Twickenham. This is sobering, humbling stats. 4 years ago, do you remember? 4 years ago, England beat France 44 points. Was it 44-8? Yeah, 44-8. And the previous greatest losing margin by England to France was 25 points. And that was in 1972 and 2006, and we've eclipsed that and some. 43-point hammering, 53-10 final score. So where to begin on England? Well, I think I just want to firstly look at the bigger picture. And hey, by all means, leave your comments. Tell me what you think. But under 20s got pumped. 2 Premiership teams have gone bust. There are some issues in English rugby which are systemic, which are deep-rooted, and which are not going to be solved by a change of coach or a change of fly half. This is something I've been talking about for a while. In fact, there was a video I did the other week or so ago, about the different systems in England and the different systems around the world and how teams set up their national teams and their leagues. And I talked about the massive issues facing England. We got big problems, big problems. And this has just revealed some of them, because this is the thin end of the wedge. And, you know, people talk about the massive pool of players that England have got. Yes, we do, but do we have a massive pool of quality players? If one player gets injured, you've got 10 more that can go in. But are they very good? Not at the elite level, no. And, I mean, I live in Manchester, and there, my son doesn't play rugby in school. He has to go to his local club, because you have to pay to go to school. You have to go to a fee-paying school to play rugby. So rugby's got some big issues. And this is topics for another video. Let's talk about the 80 minutes we've just seen and England getting absolutely panned. And yeah, let's just start on that. Well, let's just say that the best version of England that turned up. I was completely naive looking at it now to think that England had a really good, realistic chance of winning. I think the best version of England might contain France a bit better than they did, but I don't think they beat a French team in that kind of a mood. And it was naive of me to think they could. But let's talk about the game then. Let's talk about the selection of Marcus Smith. This is one of the biggest it was one of the biggest talking points before the game, and it is and should be one of the biggest talking points now. And I think it's important to say that it doesn't matter what coach is in charge, and it doesn't matter what fly half was picked. England were not winning that game, but and also I would say on Marcus Smith, there was a lot of elements of that game that he couldn't control. Marcus Smith could not control the fact that we couldn't take care of a ball at the breakdown. Marcus Smith could not control the fact that people seemed lazy in defence. He could not control a lot of factors. So that does mitigate things. However, there was lots that Marcus Smith could control, and that he messed up. And let's just be completely honest about that. Had Owen Farrell missed touch on his kicks, dropped the ball as many times, fumbled his passes, ran up blind alleys and then got turned over and got run over, and showed he was about as good at containing France in defence as a wet paper bag when he just got run over the top of by Gregory Aldrich. Had that been Owen Farrell, let's just be realistic and let's be honest, had Owen Farrell done those things, the knives would have been out. So I think you can, two things can be true at once. You cannot blame Marcus Smith for the team performance or say that it would have been better with Owen Farrell, but you can absolutely say Marcus Smith was poor with the elements that he could control. And when the chips are down, when things aren't going very well, you need your quarterback, you need your fly half leader of the team to kind of grab the team by the scruff of the neck a little bit. And I think there was just a lack of leadership out there. Do you remember when we used to talk about Maro Itoje as a future England captain, and we don't seem to talk about that anymore? Ellis Genge was the captain today, and I thought he didn't endear himself to the referee. He got on the wrong team. Well, no, this is just me looking from without any commentary and looking just at body language on the pitch. We could talk about Ben O'Keefe by all means, but I think part of the job of a captain is getting on the right side of him. That's not to say Owen Farrell's particularly good at that either. He's actually not. But Ellis Genge, I don't know. My perspective was there was no one out there on that England team that took the game or the team by the scruff of the neck at any point. So that was really, really disappointing. And then you compare and contrast that with France, who what they played some beautiful rugby, but a lot of it was simple things done really well. The offload by Charles Olivon, just getting his hands out of free in one tackle and the offload, and that set Thomas Ramos off for the first try. The dominant scrum and Gregory Aldrich just rampaging towards the line, and then I think that was when Flamont scored. And it wasn't complicated sometimes. I mean, the Fickou kick was a nice crossfield kick for Damien Penaud, but that was, I mean, you see that quite a lot in international rugby. They just did it. They just executed it really, really well. And England, by contrast, just seemed to butcher everything. Let's just talk the breakdown. Right, what's the easiest way to go through this? Do you know what? I think let's go through like player by player. That might be the easiest way. Or let's go through the game. Let's go through the game firstly. Oh yeah, just talking on the. Yeah, let me just start from the start. So, the England public, I sensed from being here at Twickenham, were back with this England team. And they were there with Steve Borthwick and with Marcus Smith and with Ellis Genge and all the guys. They were there. The atmosphere before the game was great. The anthems were absolutely belted out. Loads of brilliant travelling French fans. But it felt like the English crowd were like, yeah, they're there. I was here in the autumn when they were booed off the pitch against South Africa. And it just felt like there was no connection between the English public and the fans. But it felt like it was there today. It really did. That dissipated very, very quickly. Although, actually, one thing I noticed, put in the comments if you know what was going on or they mentioned it on the telly, but it looked to me like Taufi Fanua and Malvaka during the French anthem were absolutely wetting themselves laughing. I kind of want to know why. It seems like one of them might have told the other one a joke or something just before the camera arrived at them. At first, I was thinking, why aren't England taking the 3 points when they're on offer? But it became pretty apparent that the thought was probably right, that against this French team, you're going to need to score tries. The maul looked good to start with, and that is one element that has improved. The scrum and the maul, some of those fundamentals look good. The breakdown, we need to talk about that though, because what happened? We think of Jack Willis as this incredible Jacqueline player. We think of Lewis Ludlam as this massive defensive unit, and they were both completely neutered. And meanwhile, Jonathan Danty back in the French team, him and Julien Marchand, they're better at breakdowns. The inside centre and the hooker are better at breakdowns than any of our back row players by the look of it. Certainly from what I can see. So, yeah, some big issues. Couldn't even keep hold of our own ball. And then some just really poor decisions. There was one when we were attacking in the 22 and Max Malins did that little grubber. It went into touch 5 metres from the French line. You thought, okay, but then you just kind of, I don't know, would France have kicked that away? at that point, or they've gone for the jugular? I think we know the answer to that. So let's go through the England team and see what we think. Ellis Genge. Like I say, as a captain, I was a bit disappointed. Just that's purely looking at body language. I wasn't listening to ref cam or the ref mic or hearing the commentary, but leadership-wise, wasn't that impressed. Scrum was good. Maul was decent. We didn't really see Ellis Genge running with the ball very much. A couple of tip-on passes, but that was kind of it. Which I think, if Ellis Genge isn't looking like he's getting any sort of physical dominance, that tells you that it's a totally mismatched physicality between the two teams, because he's usually the totem for England on that front. Jamie George, I mean, I could just say meh to a lot of these. Kyle Sinclair, again, scrum, looking okay. Gave away a few pens. Maro Itoje, actually, maybe one player that was it's all relative, but Maro Itoje looked decent, made a bit of a nuisance of himself, turned over the ball a couple of times. Ollie Chesham was less effective. Again, the kind of physicality we've seen from Chesham, and then I'll lump Ludlam in with this one at 6. The sort of physicality we've seen from those two players just wasn't there today. And is that because they were up against France, who were really up for it, or were they not at their normal level? Probably a bit of both. But the gulf was massive. Jack Willis, absolutely. Who would have thought? Jack Willis got absolutely monstered at the breakdown. He just got done. He got absolutely done. And that one had me scratching my head, because he just was never a threat. And we couldn't even look after our own ball for more than a few phases. Alex Dombrandt. I've been wanting England to pick Alex Dombrandt. I've been suggesting we should persevere with him. I was more positive with him after Wales. Again, I need to watch this a second time, because I don't really want to get the knives out too much for any individual player, because there'll be things I missed from watching it and not having replays and just everything else going on around me. But maybe Alex, to use an Eddie Jones phrase, maybe Alex Dombrandt isn't a test match animal. Maybe he is the sort of player that needs 7 other guys massacre in the opposition pack, and then he'll look incredible. Maybe he's not someone when you're really struggling a little bit. What's the answer at number 8 for England? I don't know. Do you go with 3 sevens and have Tom Curry in your back row when he's back with Ludlam and Willis? Does Ben Earl deserve a shot? Does Sam Simmons deserve to come back in? Should we wait and pin all our hopes on Zach Mercer? I honestly don't know. I think for now, you've probably got to stick with Alex Dombrandt. But having backed him, I've now got question marks. Again, I want to watch the game again. But bearing in mind, Gregory Aldrit has not been at his normal high standards and got outshone by Caelan Doris. Alex Dombrandt got absolutely outclassed by Gregory Aldrit today. And you saw what an international number 8 looks like in that French team. And England did not appear to have one of those of their own. Jack Van Poortvliet, it's tough to know whether his performance was not as good, how much of that was him or how much of that was just the ball not being there on a plate. It seemed a little slow, although Alex Mitchell also found it a little tricky when he came on in that sense, so maybe there's not a lot they could do. Harry Randall's been looking, well, we'll see what he looks like tomorrow against Harlequins, is it Bristol have got, but he looked really good for Bristol last week. Rafi Quirks. So England have got options there, but like I say, I think that the problems are much more significant than a player or a couple of players. Anthony Watson, didn't really see him as an attacking force, made some errors on the other side of the ball. Not used to seeing that. Ollie Lawrence kept very, very quiet. And yeah, I've missed Marcus Smith, haven't I? Missed out Marcus Smith. I'll do Ollie Lawrence, then I'll go back to Marcus Smith. Ollie Lawrence very quiet. Didn't have an impact in an attacking sense. Wasn't even enough of a threat to open up space for other people, which is what he has looked like he's done in previous games. I think that just says, man for man, how much better France were. Like, it's frightening how much better they were than England. It's worrying how much better they were than England. And I think you have to give credit to France, but you have to also say none of the players stepped up. I'm struggling to wonder, maybe Mario Itoje, Freddie Stewart might be the only 2 England players who'd get above, I don't know, what, 5 out of 10? And they might get a 6 instead of a 5 or a 4. Marcus Smith, I don't want to draw too bigger conclusions. This is one thing that frustrates me, right? There will be a lot of people that have been clamouring for Marcus Smith, who now he has not played well in a team that has performed really badly, and they will make excuses for Marcus Smith. And I'm okay with that, but the same generosity was never afforded to Owen Farrell. The reason for England winning or losing is not down to whether Marcus Smith or Owen Farrell gets picked. And the criticism that Owen Farrell has got, and this has been a consistent thought on my channel to the point where in the comments a lot of people say I'm biased towards Farrell and I'm blinkered and I can't see it. But the criticism that Farrell gets is completely unjustified and unwarranted. And he is an England great, 105 caps, 3-time Lion, 5-time Premiership champion, 3-time European champion, World Player of the Year nominee more than once, European Player of the Year winner and nominee multiple times. He's one of the great England players ever, and the way he has been treated, I just do not get. I cannot fathom it. I cannot understand it, and I will defend Owen Farrell all day. That's not to say he should absolutely be the automatic first pick. I'm not trying to. I want to get away from the should it be Smith or should it be Farrell. They're both great options. So is George Ford. They're both great options. But the way that fans spoke about Farrell this week and imagined in their head how Marcus Smith was going to change things massively, I think it's been shown that is a completely naive point of view to take. And who is wearing the England 10 shirt out of the 3 brilliant options we've got, George Ford, Marcus Smith and Owen Farrell, doesn't matter. They're all great. Whichever one of them plays on any given day, they will not be the reason why a team wins or loses. And so can we end that conversation now? Because I'm done with that. I'm fed up of people thinking picking Marcus Smith and it's all going to be great, or not, or picking Owen Farrell, it's all going to be great. It will not make a difference. They're all great options. There are 3 options that other countries would absolutely love to have. There we go, rant over on that one. Henry Slade, very, very quiet. One thing I have been saying in my videos recently with regards to the Smith-Farrell thing is the decision will not be should it be Marcus Smith or should it be Owen Farrell. It will be should it be Owen Farrell or Henry Slade. And I've spoken up and said I don't think necessarily Owen Farrell at 12 is over. And this is not in the wake of this game. You can check the videos on the channel. This is something I've been saying consistently and I stand by it. Owen Farrell at 12 is not necessarily over. I don't think it works with Marcus Smith, but I think it could work with George Ford, potentially. And I think we saw today the change that Steve Borthwick made was to bring Farrell on for Slade, who was having a very, very quiet game and missed. It was like a bit of a turnstile in defence at times. And whether the answer is to bring in Marchant or maybe it is Farrell with Ollie Lawrence at 13. That's one thing I've been saying might potentially actually be something which works. It's not going to turn a defeat into a win, but I think it has some merit, at least in discussion. Max Malins, it's interesting when you see. I don't know how much it comes across on the TV, but when you hear, one thing Max Malins does really well is he hugs that touchline. It's obviously what he's been told to do, but he keeps the width. And the number of times he was calling for a crossfield kick, which actually, well, it wasn't a try in the end, but it looked like it had worked really well. And that's one thing that I really appreciate about Max Malins is he stretches the opposition teams a little bit. He's a very intelligent player, but didn't really have a lot to do. And, well, England just got done defensively, didn't they? And Freddie Stewart, who got stuck in, put it about a little bit, scored the try. He also ran back from deep a few times and got turned over, which you can't blame all on Freddie Stewart. That's the support there. So he was one of the few, I'm loath to say positive, but less worse. Freddie Stewart was one of the least worst bits of England. As for the bench, 65 minutes in, we're getting absolutely battered here. Yay, Mako and Dan Cole coming on. Whoop, that'll sort it. No, and Jack Walker, just again, I've been saying it consistently, I'll say it again. When you look at that bench, you do not feel confident thinking Mako Vunipola, Jack Walker and Dan Cole are coming on. It feels substandard for this level. And yeah, when you compare that to the absolute brutes that France were bringing on. Who else we got? Dave Ribbons, hardly got any time, didn't really see him. Ben Curry, well, within 30 seconds of coming on, he won a turnover. He, relative to other players in the back row, he actually seemed to make a bit of an impact on the game, at least from what I could tell from where I was without having watched it a second time. Alex Mitchell, I mean, I'm a big fan of his. Didn't really change too much when he came on. Owen Farrell, well, I thought he did some things quite nicely. He straightened up the line a little bit. I mean, when he came on, Marcus Smith a few times tried to run it into contact himself and got battered. Owen Farrell just ran it straight, fed the ball to Ollie Lawrence. 2 phases later, we go and score. But nothing great, really, was it? And then who else have we got? Henry Arundel. Didn't really do anything. Didn't really have the chance to do anything. So, Steve Borthwick. It's hard not to be too reactive here, and I don't want to be too reactive because a lot of people are going to go, oh, well, you know, we shouldn't have got rid of Eddie Jones. And I think I came to the conclusion we know we did have to get rid of Eddie Jones because he had soured the relationship between the fans and the team and made this place a really not a very nice place to be on a match day. And I mentioned it in the last video, whilst we were getting absolutely spanked, there were England fans just in the loos, just having a laugh about it. Just kind of, I don't know. That's not a compliment, is it? Saying that they were resigned to defeat. I think Eddie Jones did have to go, but I don't think just to go back to it, whichever coach came in, it wasn't going to change it. Whichever person wears the 10 shirt, it's not going to change it. And let's just be realistic about that. And maybe we overemphasise individual selections, and we overemphasise who the coach is, who the captain is, who the 10 is, way too much. And we need to just be realistic about the fact that there are some deep-rooted, just to go back to the start of the video, there are some deep-rooted issues that England have got. And I don't think that everyone talks about the Premiership being the best league in the world. I think it's brilliantly competitive. I think it has been the best league in the world. But I think it is a shadow of what it was. I think there are serious, serious problems. I think that the quality of rugby in the Premiership has dipped significantly. 2 teams have gone bust. And I think we're seeing some of these deep-rooted issues coming through in the national team. And we've got, and there needs some root and branch, big picture, long-term thinking to actually sort this out. Otherwise we've got problems, and I'm sure that is what I'll be talking about on future videos. Thank you very much for watching. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Leave your comments, and I'll see you on the next one. The next one will be Ireland-Scotland. Hopefully that'll be a good game.